Alright, so it's been a few days now since the release of the latest box into Duel Links, and since then, obviously, all of us have had a decent amount of time to test out these new cards and see what they're doing and play against them on the ladder, and there's even been a couple of tournaments that have been pretty big, like 180 plus people, that can just give us some decent results to show off where the power level of these new decks are going to be sitting, what cards have impacted the meta, and just give us a good understanding of just how these deck lists are going to function now that we've actually seen them all being played. So I thought now would be a great time to do an updated tier list to show off what I think these deck lists are going to be sitting and how they've impacted the meta, and just tell you guys just what they're kind of doing in the game. Now obviously, we're in a very early stage of this box. There might be some new developments coming out over the upcoming days that will completely change the tier list, or some new deck will be discovered, or God knows what. But for now, I think we've got a rough understanding of where we think everything's going to sit. So I thought I'd do an updated tier list showcasing everything. Alright, so before we get into the tier list, just a reminder, if you guys do enjoy this kind of content, want to see some more tier lists from me in the future, or a bunch of deck lists from me in the future, remember to subscribe to my channel. I have a whole bunch of videos on here on all the latest cards, every single new box, and I'm getting pretty close to 100k now, so I'd really appreciate the subscribers. And yeah, let's get into this tier list. Oh, also, obviously, I can't fit every single deck list in all of Duel Links into this tier list. That would be completely ridiculous. So I've put in roughly 20 deck lists on here, mostly just that all the decks have been performing well in tournaments in the last month, and of course, all the new deck lists, because that's what people want to see where they're sitting. So that's what I've included on here. So basically, all the deck lists from the last 4 weeks in tournament play up until about Rocket. So anything behind here, so the Red Eyes and below, I haven't bothered to include. These deck lists are all probably pretty good, but they just haven't been doing well in tournaments, or people haven't been playing them in tournaments. So if your deck list isn't featured on here, don't take it as some sort of personal attack or something. It's just no one's really playing it in tournament play. So if you want it to appear on future tier lists, just go win some tournaments. Then it'll appear on these tier lists. That's basically the gist of things. So let's get into this tier list. Alright. So to give context to this tier list, I should keep that tab open. To give a bit of context to this tier list, we're going to have to go through Tachyon first, because Tachyon is probably the biggest unexpected thing I've had in like all of Duel Links. Is definitely the deck list I've been the most wrong on trying to predict before it was released. I definitely should have looked way harder into this deck list. I basically took one look at the main boss monster for this deck and just thought, yeah, this deck's gonna be really average at best. So that's what I basically said on the last tier list video. I was like, I saw what some people were doing with this deck list before it was released. They were basically just summoning the big boss monster, searching the trap, and that was all they were doing, nothing else. And my god, this deck list does way more than I thought it did. First of all, the skill isn't even once per turn, so it has follow-up. You can set up at least 2 Exceed monsters on the first turn, and it's insanely consistent. And to top it all off, you can fit in a shit ton of tech cards if you want to as well, making it an insane deck list. So much so that it has been warping the entire meta. Basically, what I'm saying is, it's tier 0. Most likely tier 0. If it's not tier 0, it's definitely tier 1. But from what we've been seeing so far, it's, yeah, it's tier 0. It has been doing insane numbers in tournament play. So another big tournament, this is a massive tournament, this is like 200 people or something, so this was fairly early on, so maybe a lot of people in this tournament went teching into particularly to beat the Tachyon deck list. So we had another one here for, the Grand Prix, which happened yesterday, which again, this was for the top 32. We had 14 Tachyon players, 10 Shiranui players, and everything else is not even remotely close. To be fair, a lot of this is like new deck syndrome, where everyone wants to try out the new cool thing. Like I'm pretty sure all the Mayakashi players would have jumped over to Shiranui just to try it out anyway, so I think there's a bit of a new deck bias going on with both of these two screenshots, but it's a very clear winner currently going on with what the top deck is. It's definitely going to be Tachyon by a long shot. There's even an FTK going around for Tachyon, which I won't show you the whole thing because it takes a little while, which essentially just allows you to draw your whole deck with like disgusting trading non-once per turn stuff before eventually just... Let me just get to the end of it. Oh yeah, of course, drawing 3 from your big dude over here. And then you can make it up, 4,500 attack, activate whatever this card is on it, give it to your opponent and nuke them. And apparently this is an 83% consistency going first FPK or something like that, I think they were saying, so... Yeah, it's probably not the best way to play it because it's not as good going second and it loses to like Effect Veiler and stuff, but... I think it's just worth noting just how strong this deck is, that it even has an FTK variant going around. So, because of this, because this thing is tier 0, it's going to make the rest of the meta look really weird in that everything's been sort of shoved downwards. I don't think there's going to be many deck lists that can compete with this deck. So if your deck can't really compete with this, it's probably just not tiered anymore, just because everybody's going to be playing it. So until this thing gets nerfed, the rest of the meta is going to look a little bit iffy, because I think everything needs to be strong, or you're not competing. That's just how it's going to be. So I think tier 3 is going to be a little bit weaker than it was. Alright, tier 3 is going to be stronger than it was, because everything that was in tier 3 is basically what was in tier 2 last time, is basically what's going to look like. Alright, so let's get into the rest of the cards in this tier list now you've got some context. Alright, so starting off with, we've got Blue Eyes. So Blue Eyes with the new support, it turns out it's basically what we thought. It's a good deck list, it's solid for ladder, but it's just not really... It's not something that's to get too excited about. I think I saw someone playing it was in top 32 for this tournament, actually. Yeah, one person in here topped with it. It's a fine deck, but it's not like a top tier deck by any means. It's just like you can play, and yeah, it'll be fine. Alright, so I don't think it's even like that much stronger than the previous variant, which is kind of what I'm getting at. Even with the new support, it hasn't really changed a whole lot. Both new skills sort of work with it if you want to. It's just not that much stronger than it was. So if it was already Rogue, it's probably still Rogue. Live Twin. Alright, so Live Twin before, I was having it tier 2, but I think since the release of the new box, this deck is still really strong, but I think it's not as strong as the others anymore. I think it's been outclassed. This format currently, I think, is really strong with a lot of really powerful decks right now, and Live Twin, even though it's an insanely strong deck, it just isn't as strong as some of the other stuff currently going on. So I think Live Twin's actually fallen down a tier. Also, I think Live Twin, it was kind of getting carried by the fact that it could have a bunch of tech cards, things like your DD Crows and stuff in here. And Tachyon, it doesn't really care about Crow all that much. Sometimes it does, they have one card they summon back from the graveyard, but a lot of the time that thing's just summoned from hand anyway. So, yeah, I don't think this thing, even with all its techs, doesn't actually do that well into Tachyon, so we're going to put it there. Oh god, okay. So this turned out to be even worse than I thought it was. I thought this thing would be playable, but as it turns out, just by watching it, bro, if you're playing this, like, it's playable in a sense that the cards function in a combo, but they don't do anything. I'm putting this in unplayable tier purely because if you're playing it, you're gimping yourself. Go play any other version of Cyberse out there. Literally any other version. Do not play this. This thing, it does literally nothing. You're ending on an end board of nothing and a card draw. That's what you're getting at. Literally no end field and a card draw. It is terrible. A lot of people might say that have different end boards they would show you with this deck list, but all of them are just like different variants of Cyberse extending on top of it, which if you're doing that, you might as well not play this combo and play standard Cyberse and just set up a decent end field without the garbage in it. That's basically what we're getting at. So I'm putting this in unplayable tier. Do not play it. Alright, getting the other sort of anime deck out the way, we've got Dark Magician. So Dark Magician, I think Blue Eyes is probably better than it, I think. But I don't know. I don't think I've seen a single person sign up to a tournament with it yet, so it's kind of hard to say how it would do in a tournament when I don't think anybody's playing it in tournament play. I think the deck list is honestly not that bad. I think it's definitely better than playable. Like, surely it's better than playable. It's a fairly decent deck list. Like, I had that 10-0 streak the other day, but... Like, would I be shocked if some dude took this into, like, KC Cup and somehow snuck in the top 100? Not really. I think someone probably could, so... We'll keep it in Rogue tier for now. I think the deck list is definitely strong enough. I think it's probably better than playable, right? Or is Blue Eyes better? Nah, Blue Eyes is probably stronger. Maybe we'll stick it in playable for now. I mean, it's definitely a good ladder deck list, but fucking anything's good on ladder at the moment, so we'll put it there. Alright, next up we have Rocket. Okay, Rocket. So I think we actually had a Rocket topping in one of these. We have one Rocket topping here. I think Rocket it's still a good deck, but like, man, the format's getting so much stronger. I think if Rocket was only sort of just sneaking into tier 3, I think with the latest inclusion of all this stuff, surely it gets kicked out, surely. It feels really bad putting it in the same tier as like Blue Eyes though, like surely it's up here. Like this deck is like, notoriously good in KC Cups for some reason. People just really like playing it, so it's going to be in top 100 KC Cup, that's for sure. But will it have as many placings as like a Live Twin, for example? I'm not really sure about that. I think we'll keep it in tier 3 for now, just because I think it will do well in this upcoming KC Cup, which probably should be what this tier list is based on, because that's the next big event that's coming, so I think it's probably tier 3. I expect it to have a decent amount just of people playing it in KC Cups, just because it always does, so we'll keep it there for now. Ah, zombies. Pure zombie. Yeah, I'm tempted to put this in unplayable. I'm very tempted to put it in unplayable. I've seen 0 people doing anything with this deck at all. I've checked out, since the release, I've been checking the DLM Discord to see like some end fields and stuff people have been trying to do with it, and they've all looked not great. Let's just say, to say the least. I haven't even seen anyone trying to make any YouTube videos on it. There might be someone out there that's done it, but it just seems really bad. If it's playable in a sense that like again, the cards function, but they don't really end on enough of a field for it to be, or they're not consistently ending on enough of a field for it to be really competing with anything else. So I'm pretty sure it is just unplayable currently. I don't even know if it will ever be playable, just because there just isn't really... Is there any more support that could be added? Maybe someone in the comments can tell me down below, but I don't think it's that playable. It's not really a deck at the moment. Pure Zombie isn't really a thing. I think it will take like a skill to make this thing a playable deck. Maybe a skill that just puts Zombie well on the field at the start of the duel would be kind of sick. I'd be even down for that. Alright, moving on. Mayakashi. This one is probably tier 1. I think, in my opinion, Mayakashi and Shiranui are basically in the same boat, where I think they're both insanely... In fact, we'll do Shiranui at the same time, just because I think they're in the same sort of boat. I think both these deck lists are really insane and they can both do a lot of stuff in like playing through things, but Shiranui is just can set up the better end field and generally end on sort of better cards, but I think it's more susceptible to Crow, and a lot of people are playing Crow, especially in the side deck event, which KC Cup isn't, so... But yeah, I think Shiranui is probably the stronger deck in terms of just overall, but because it's weaker to Crow, I think Mayakashi is basically on tie with it. If Crow didn't exist, I think it would be more like this. But I think because Crow exists, I think these two are fairly similar. I wouldn't really... I think if the Mayakashi players, or if the Shiranui players were still playing Mayakashi, I think they would look very similar on all of these stat graphs. I think most people are just sort of playing the new deck because it's more fun, but... It's only yeah, because we had like what? How many Shiranuis into this one? 22. Mayakashi had 12. No idea about this one. I think these two are on par with each other. I'd put them both in tier 1 right now. Shiranui's come out the gate completely swinging, by the way. If you guys haven't seen the various different variations of this deck list that are out there right now, turns out the list I made, it's okay, but it's not even like the best of the list. There are some way better lists than that one currently, so... Yeah, this deck is completely cracked. It is just ridiculous. It's definitely a tier 1 deck. I've seen multiple top players saying it's a tier 1 deck too, so this isn't even just my opinion. It's just, it should be tier 1. I'd be very surprised if it ends up any lower. Maybe just because of Tachyon alone, they'll both end up in tier 2 and nothing will be in tier 1, but I think these are probably the stronger decks in the format right now. Alright, outside of Tachyon, of course. Alright, we've got this deck, which I've forgotten the name of. S-Force. I think this deck was verging on Rogue, and I think after the latest edition of all the new stuff, it's being pushed into Rogue. There is just so much power up here right now. I don't think this deck necessarily competes as well. Yeah, I definitely don't think this deck competes as well. It's a deck that I could see maybe 1 or 2 sneaking a top 100 in a KC Cup or something, but I don't think it's... I'd be surprised if it's like a significant amount at all. I don't think it's that. I think definitely like Liveton would have more. It might be on par with Rocket actually. These two are super close. So these two could be tier 3 or they could be Rogue, but I don't think they're much higher than that. I think they're just sort of chilling there. I think I'll keep Rocket here for now just because I think more people are willing to play this deck over this one. This one's more exciting than S-Force, but yeah, I just think with the amount of power in this format right now, I don't think S-Force is keeping up as much, so I'm going to keep it down here. Constellar is probably on... Oh, Conceal's probably tier 2, I think. I think when I did this tier list last time, I had them as the best deck in the format, and I was very close to putting Mayakashi in tier 1 to go with them. But I think now that everything's sort of settling down, I think it turns out this deck is very close to being on the same tier as these guys, but maybe not quite there. It's sort of like a tier 1.5, because I think anything else in tier 2, this thing's definitely better than by quite a bit, but not quite good enough to compete with these two, I don't think. Was any one Constellar on this one? Was any on this one? Didn't even enter a Constellar. Actually, we had a 21 on here and none of them topped. That's pretty bad showing. Not that just 2 tournaments are a good enough sort of result thing, but it's been popping off in tournaments recently, but I think after all this new stuff releases, like Shiranui is definitely going to do better than it. Mayakashi's doing way better than it. So I think these two deck lists are just stronger, so I think it's tier 2. It's close though. Like I said, if I had a tier 1.5, this would be in it, but I just don't think it's quite as good as these decks. Yeah, I think that's probably a fair spot for it. It just has an insane turn 1. It's so insane turn 1. Even going second, it's really not that bad with all the tech cards and stuff. It's one of those decks that can play 3 Crow to deal with like Shiranui, for example, so I'll stick it there. Destiny Hero. So even with the new whatever his name is, what's his name? So I know some people were trying out the zombie variant, playing the new zombie monster wherever he is. Boulder Cock or Baller Rock or whatever his name is. Yeah, Doom King, Boulder Cock right here. And even with this new edition, it changed nothing. Because like I said with the last tier list, I thought this deck list would be like, it's Destiny Hero, but it's Destiny Hero, like it's the same as what Destiny Hero was before. Nothing's changed. You're basically ending on maybe 1 extra sort of disruption, but you're way weaker to an MST. That's the difference, which is not enough to make this deck any stronger than it was. And it was like roguish, so it's probably just going to be still roguish. It's one of those decks that, once again, will it be like top 100 KC Cup? Maybe, if someone really wants to play it for that many games, but it's nowhere near as strong as anything else up here, at least in my opinion. Suship. Suship is super strange. Suship is like a really... It's like actually the underdog. This deck, I've seen so many random ass toppings for it. People are just so willing to play this deck list currently. But I think if I'm being completely honest, it's just not doing... It's not quite doing as well as the others. So I think putting it in like... Any Suships into this one? Only 4. I don't know. I really like Suship. I really wish it was tier 3, but I don't think it's good as good as these deck lists. But it's actually such a strong deck. Like if you're a new player to the game and you're looking for a new deck that is really, really cheap to just literally take in and just go into like tournament play or take onto the ladder and just stomp people, it's actually a really decent option just because of how cheap it is. It is like, it's such a dark horse of a deck. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing is like 3 or 4 toppings in the KC Cup, just because it's a speed deck, it's an OTK deck, it's a cheap deck, and yeah, it's also a really fun deck to play. You're literally beating people to death with Sushi. It's fantastic. So yeah, I think in a KC Cup format, maybe it actually sneaks into Rogue tier, actually, but maybe once the Tachyon gets nerfed and everything sort of gets pushed up, maybe this deck ends up sneaking into tier 3. Maybe. But I think with the format the way it is, with everything's being so powerful, it's not quite there. But I wouldn't be surprised if it does sneak up later on. And I hope it does. I would love to see a tier 3 deck list as strong, like as cheap as Suship is. That would be fantastic. So make it happen, Konami. Nerf this stuff and hopefully Suship sneaks its way up. Alright, Gearfried. Gearfried is also a weird deck because Gearfried just had like a bunch of random results. I didn't even like, if I was doing the last tier list I did, I think I would have put this at tier 3. But Gearfried, the way it is, just because, like I said, everything's been sort of pushed down thanks to how strong the current meta is with Tachyon being tier 0, and in that context, it's sort of a rogue deck list. If, like I said, the last tier list, if we were going based on Tachyon existing and everything's pushed back up again, I think I'd actually put this in tier 3, just because it was doing weirdly well in tournament play, which is, I don't know, it's just a weird deck. You don't see it often on ladder, but in tournament play, it was just topping just randomly, even with just such a low amount of people entering tournaments with it, like with low representation, it was still performing really well. So, but it's, yeah, in this format, it's not strong enough to compete with the actual strong decks, so it's sitting in Rogue. Alright, we're gonna have a lot of things in Rogue tier today. Earth Machine. Oh, I think it's tier 3. I think it's tier 3. This deck has a bit of a downside to it where it's kind of complicated and it has a lot of steps going into it when you're trying to play it. So I think a lot of people just don't want to play it just because it's more of like a hard deck or it takes a while to learn. So, but I think it's power level wise, it's definitely on par with the Rocket. Maybe it's a little bit less than Live Twin, but I think it's tier 3. I would say this deck is definitely stronger than anything in this tier, which is probably qualifying it enough for being tier 3, I'd say. It is a very strong deck, just takes a while to learn. And even with not so many people playing it, it has like a decent amount of toppings, wherever it is. It has 20 toppings, actually. To be fair, S-Force also had 20 toppings, but maybe S-Force is a bit higher than I'm thinking. This is a lot of tournament toppings, actually, 20. It's even just behind Live Twin. Tachyon, after like 2 days of play, is already caught up to all these deck lists over the last 4 weeks, by the way. That's incredible. Anyway. Actually, looking at that, I feel like S-Force might be better. Maybe S-Force is better than these deck lists. How many did S-Force top in here? There was an S-Force topping in this one. With only 4 people, we had an S-Force top. Oh, alright, I'll put S-Force. I'll buy it. I'll put S-Force in tier 3. I'll sneak it in there. I've changed my mind. I've been convinced. Alright, then we have your Shadow. This is just a rogue deck. Shadow is... it's just a deck that exists. Unfortunately for Shadow, its only real strength is Winder, and the fact that it has like a sort of a grind game for it, but yeah, Duel Links isn't as susceptible to floodgates as a lot of other formats are, but just because we have just people are playing things like Book of Moon and Droplet, they just playing the main deck and everyone's playing it. So if every deck is playing a Droplet or a Book of Moon, everyone's playing an out to Winder. So its main sort of floodgate strength just isn't really a thing. So if that's not a thing and it doesn't really offer much else in terms of like hard disruption, it's just not going to compete with anything else in this top tier. It just isn't. But it's definitely a good deck, just not... yeah, it's not natural top tier deck currently. Alright, Lunar Light. Again, another rogue deck. I think in KC Cup format, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple of these sneak in, just because, again, it's a speed deck list. It's pretty similar to Suship, actually. Both incredibly cheap decks, both really good at OTKing sort of stuff, but it's not a whole lot more than that. It doesn't offer a whole lot of disruption sort of stuff. It's not offering a bunch of value sort of draw game. It can't play as many tech cards, so it can't sort of teched out things, especially in a tier 0 sort of a meta. You kind of want to have a deck that can run things that are specifically designed to deal with Tachyon, and Lunar Light isn't a deck that can really play things that are specifically designed to deal with Tachyon, so, or the Tachyon list, so it's just sitting in rogue tier for now, I think. Galaxy, oh god, oh, I really hate this. It's a rogue deck. It's just rogue. I want it to be higher so badly. This deck is like... I feel like if Tachyon gets nerfed, there is a chance people would actually more people would play this, and it would actually, with the format being slightly weaker, it would sneak into tier 3. In a weaker format, I think this thing could be tier 3. The issue is, it just isn't. Everything is just so much better. I don't know how there can be a skill that exists that literally +2s you. Just activate it, add 2 cards to hand, no downside whatsoever. That can exist, and it's not a top tier deck. It is so baffling that Galaxy Eyes isn't actually as strong as it should be. Like, if we get that stupid negate monster back, whatever it's called, Photon Lord, or whatever his name is, this is 100% top tier. But we just don't have him right now, so he's in rogue. It's so close to top tier. It is, like, ridiculously close. The skill is so strong, but it just needs something else. Just, like, one more thing to tip it over, and it'll be insane. Just one more thing needs to happen. It's close. Like, it's rogue currently. Like, it's just not quite as good as everything else. I think it's mostly based on its turn 1 being, like, all monster disruption, so it just loses to a Droplet. That on top of its turn 1 disruption isn't that great. It's like a targeted destroy by discarding a card, which is... I mean, it's something, I guess. Then we have a negate that doesn't destroy or anything. It just negates and leaves the thing on the field. Cool. Sometimes you can set up a rank 5. Sometimes you can set up a rank 4 that can stop your things being targeted. That's pretty cool, I guess. That really isn't actually that much of an end field compared to some of the other stuff that's being played, so... It's close, though. Like I said, Photon Lord, it's a top tier deck. Until then, he's rogue. Alright, this one's on here just for a teaser, because you know in my last tier list video, I covered Onomat. I've now cogged with Zombie Onomat. I did it today, I had a very decent run with it, and I'm honestly thinking, I'm not joking, it is the best user of... It is by far the best user of this, wherever it is. Bouldercock, wherever his name is. It is by far the best user of this card. I think it's better than Destiny Hero. So it's not top tier. It won't be top tier just because even if it was top tier, no one would play it, so it wouldn't even get a chance to reach it. But this deck, I would say it's better than Destiny Hero, and I'd say it's a better user of the card of Destiny Hero. I thought this deck would be, because for those that don't know, if they didn't see my last video, basically this deck can make Beatrice really easily, and if you make Beatrice, you can one card basically just with Beatrice, you can get your field spell out, and you can get Bouldercock out on your opponent's turn, and you will have a negate and a banish on top of anything else you've set up already. And I just think it's the best user by far. It can protect your Bouldercock from things like MST, Book of Moons. You can even protect it from the field spell, like I said, from MST. It is just an insane card for the deck list. And I just want to hype it up just because I'm releasing the video tomorrow, and I think people will enjoy it. It's definitely a rogue level deck though. It's not as good as any of the other ones in here by far, but I think it's actually better than Destiny Hero, which I think a lot of people will be surprised about from... But yeah, you'll see tomorrow. It's a fantastic deck list. It's really fun. Tenyi, finally! Tenyi has been... I swear to God, I want this thing to be unmasked so badly as the fraud it is. It is a tier 3 deck. This is not even tier 2. You're all coping. This is actually fraudulent. Let's have a look at the Tenyi results. What's been going on here? We're 18 Tenyis, 0 tops. Get shit on. I guess there was 2 tops in here. Okay, two frauds managed to sneak in here, but I don't think this deck list is a super top tier deck anymore. I really don't. I think there'll probably be a bunch of people who still play this in KC card because they're just so used to it. They're so addicted to this deck list by now. But I do not think it's as good as Constella. I'll stand by that. I'm putting it in tier 3. I'll accept the hot take clown emojis people are going to put in my comment section for this, but it's going to be a tier 3 deck, and that is not a clown take. That deck is... Its turn 1 is so bad, I swear to God. I find this thing on ladder, and I beat it. It is just the most, like... I never understood how it was a tier 1 deck. I still don't understand how it's a tier 1 deck. I understand it has a really good going second. That's cool. But its turn 1 is just, like... On average, it sets up maybe 2 lots of disruption. Sometimes no disruption, just an untargetable thing, and just hope your opponent hasn't got a non-target removal source, which, spoiler alert, a lot of decks have that now, so... Yeah, I don't know. Even, like, it loses to Abyssal, like, going first as well. It is, like... I don't know, man. The fact that, like, I beat this thing, like, consistently with Dark Magician the other day was also pretty embarrassing, so I'm putting it in tier 3. I'm calling this thing a fraud. Alright, that's gonna do it for this tier list. I think I'm pretty happy with where I've put everything. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with where I put everything. This is about what I think the meta is going to look like, so... Yeah, let me guys know down below what you think the meta is going to look like, if I put anything on here that you disagree with, or things that you would change, or whatever else. And yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. I think this is a... Other than the Tachyon stuff, maybe after KC Cup, once this gets a nerf, because if this turns out to be a tier 0, it'll be on the limit list in some way after post KC Cup. Maybe there'll be some sort of nerf to it. And once it does get nerfed, I think that'll be a pretty fun format, even if it does turn out to be like a tier 1 deck. This would be a really fun format to be a part of. I'm liking all the decks in here. Just one little issue with it right now, and that's the Tachyon stuff. Once this gets dealt with, it'll be a really fun format. It just won't be so much fun for the KC Cup, and you'll be seeing a lot of Tachyon on ladder. I think the hardest part about Tachyon right now is there isn't really super easy cards to deal with it. Like Effect Veiler and DD Crow don't really affect this deck too much, so it means you can't really tech against it, which is annoying. But yeah, overall, pretty decent format. Let me know down below what your thoughts are. If you think this deck list or this tier list is complete trash, you can tell me that down below as well. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Onomat video tomorrow. Hope to see you in the next one. Laters.